Hi, thank you so much for watching yet another episode of the RBJ Show. Today I have someone that I just adore. I feel like I adore people all the time, but this is like a special case. This is like super special. I have someone who I love this person so much. I kissed her on the cheek after I saw her present, and I don't kiss anyone on the cheek. I like my daughter, but like not like other people. And I was so moved. So we have Teri Karjala here today. And Teri, like you're gonna introduce yourself. You're gonna dive right in. But I want to ask you this big question. So we are in the quarantine age right now, Corona and all that stuff. What is the biggest thing that a lot of your clients are coming to for right now? What kind of resources are they going to for?
You know, I think a lot of clients right now, and people that are seeking me out, is around just this arching fear state that we are in, right? Like it's probably the first time in a lot of people's lives that we've experienced this like global fear, right? And so I think a lot of people, and that looks differently in every person's, situation. I mean, from my entrepreneur clients, that looks really different to then from my family and my friends, and even neighbors and people, that I'm coming in contact regularly, because we're all being impacted by this one global thing. But it's fascinating to me is how we're all experiencing it underneath that, if that makes sense.
100%, 100%, because fear. So this thing, so you as a counselor, as a coach, you're super successful in this realm. Is there a thread to the kind of fear that people are experiencing? Or do you feel like people are acting out thinking it's different fears? But do you know what I'm saying? Do you feel like there's one constant fear that a lot of us are having in this moment, or is it a few different ones?
I honestly think if I were to lump it all together, okay, I think it's really the fear of uncertainty, and I think that's where people are kind of grasping for, and it's forcing us because there is a lot of uncertainty. We can't control it, right? For my type A's and my double A's and my triple A's and my entrepreneurs, myself included, okay, I am solely included in that. Like, we want to control this, or there's a part of us that wants to control it, but it's making us, for those that are like, okay, we cannot control this, and yet we're kind of living now. We're being forced to slow down, live day to day, but there's this like overarching this uncertainty that we're being faced. And so it's kind of interesting how conversations are happening, because people are shifting their businesses, they're shifting the way we live life, and a lot of it, I'll be honest, it's yummy, juicy stuff that's coming out of this this pandemic that we're being faced with, right? And so I definitely have a different perspective, because I'm not in the doom and gloom and like, oh, this is awful. I'm trudging through it as well, but I also have this. I'm guilty of being the ultimate optimistic. That like, there's a lot of good that's coming out of this as well, and I think it's time. It's a time for us to shift and pivot, and so people are shifting and pivoting. Maybe not necessarily when they wanted to, but they're starting to see, especially right now, we're kind of like 5 weeks in, people are starting to see the yummy juiciness that's coming out of all of this. Does that make sense?
100%. And I'm so glad you're saying that, because that's like when the impetus for having you on the show is because like maybe from a fear state. No, yeah, fucking for sure from a fear state, like for sure. I was like, I want to have someone on here that could just make me feel a little bit better right now. You know what I mean? And to shift the perspective and to shift the mindset. And like you talk about like taking ownership of your happiness, right? I feel like I had a few minutes that first week where I was like, oh my God, like I was like, be happy right now. How would I be happy right now? How would I shift? Like, how do you be positive? There was like a minute. And then I was like, okay, you know what? Grieve, go through it, and then get your shit together, make a pivot. And it's been, I mean, I say this with the utmost respect to people who are suffering, but like, it's been a really challenging, but good time, right? What do you think is at the root of how people can make this a positive experience?
At the root of it? You're talking, so I've taken my 22 plus years now of counseling experience. I've combined it with energy psychology, and then I've applied the principles of quantum physics to really help leverage people's lives and their businesses. And so when you're asking me, I think we kind of have, I don't necessarily want to break people up into two groups, but we have everyone is experiencing this in their own terms, in their own ways, and there's no rightness and wrongness, okay? I think we're being shown with what we need to be shown to on our path, right? And so I think there's going to be, if we've done a lot of personal development on ourselves, if we've done a lot of personal work and we kind of know what those limiting beliefs are, we're going to have an easier time with this, right? Versus someone that maybe is starting out on their journey, and maybe this is happening for them to help them experience what they need to be experiencing right now to help them on that journey, to start that journey, or maybe get further along that journey, right? And so I do feel like people are having a wide variety of ranges, and I hope that everyone who's listening to this podcast and will in the future listen to this podcast will. I hope that everyone is doing well. If we have, a shelter over our head, food on the table, and some sort of a job security situation, we're doing really well. But I also know that there's millions of people that are not in the same boat, right? And so, but how we can look at this and how we can, kind of transcend, if you will, fear into something else, is taking a look at where we're at. And I come from this place of, there's really kind of two perspectives. I think many of your listeners hopefully have experienced something else like this in their lives. About it seems like every 20 years, 15, 20 years, we have something come up. The last time I experienced this was 2008 when the economy crashed, right? And there was two realities during that time. And I feel like we have two realities during this time too. And I'm going to pair it back to that experience, because in 2008, everything was, I remember having my accountant, he was like doom and gloom. I was on the phone, he's like, oh my gosh, the world's coming to an end tomorrow, right? Like that's how he, experienced that. We had, I had a good friend who had a floral company and her business went under. I had another good friend who, she got laid off, right? And that was one reality, okay? On the other side, same time, same reality. There was a brand new K through 12 school being built in my neighborhood. There was a brand new Chase Bank, a barber shop, a scrapbooking shop, and like a coffee shop, all being built, right? Brand new at the same time. My doom and gloom accountant, unfortunately, we had to say goodbye because he just wasn't supporting me in that way. So we said goodbye, found another accountant who's like, let's go, let's climb, let's build, let's expand, right? And so I'm like, yes. And at the same time, that my girlfriend who got laid off, she called me up and I'm like, yay, let's celebrate. And she's like, I kind of knew you were going to have that response. So we had this big celebration for her because she absolutely hated her job. And the greatest gift that she could have been given in 2008 was getting laid off and having the cushion of unemployment for 6 months to figure out what she wanted to do, right? Since then, she's gone on to find what she loves and does and is very passionate about it. Do you see that? Same realities taking place, absolutely at the same time. And still, we know from economic perspective, still either in a down economy or an up economy, a millionaire is still made every minute. And that's true for each type, right? So we know that there's tons of opportunities, there's tons of possibilities. And I believe if we have the wherewithal within ourselves, that if we can make this pivot, right? We're being forced to like look at things and like, how do you pivot, right? And it's going to force us to look at things in a different way. And I think we are here to grow and expand. And I think this is like the root of us being able to grow and expand, because it engages, creativity and innovation and all this yummy things. I promise you that we're going to see amazing inventions out of all of this. Like, I just know it, right?
Well, it's so true, like on so many levels, like, there's a lot of things that are being hit right now that like, even, and I say this again with the utmost respect, 2016, my then wife and I, we lost everything. We had to move in with my parents that were going in through their own financial stuff going on, and and we just had a newborn baby, and like, and I decided that would be a good time to get off of antidepressants that I was on for anxiety that I had a year or 2 years earlier. Like, so it's all crazy. And I remember the notion of like feeling very much like life was happening to me, not for me, right? Like the saying that, like you say, like, so I remember feeling like a victim, and then it took about a year until we hit rock bottom, and then we're like, I sought help with an Ayurvedic consultant, and she started teaching us like mindset stuff, and it was the foundation, and it took 2 years to get to a much better place. So I just want to say, like, I get not being in a place where you feel life is happening for you, but to you.
Right.
But I love what you're saying right now, because a lot of the things that are going out right now, it sucks. But like, hey, I love live performing. I don't get to live perform. I mean, like, there's things that are going out that you saw coming anyway. I hate saying this to my theater friends that have amazing theater companies and work in theater, but it's like, for years we've been reading that there's, like audiences are going down because they want to stream. They're getting more and more accustomed to stuff coming to your house, So I use that as an extreme example, but so many businesses that are challenged right now are adapting or not adapting, but it's like these things were coming anyway, right? So this,
sorry, and I didn't realize, I just heard this yesterday, that there's a lot of restaurants that had no foundation to do it, take out or anything else. And I didn't even really think about that, right? Because why would we, right? It's because a lot of restaurants were built on the experience going there, like, right? And so now what's beautiful is, like, a lot of restaurants that didn't have that technology have come up to speed to that. And so, yes, I agree. Like, I think the piece that I grieve in the most about this whole experience is that personal connection, because I know there's some yummy things that are going to transform, come of this. But I also know that things that I probably that I've taken for granted maybe it's not going to be there as much as or is the same maybe, right?
100%.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of like what I'm missing is, like, I love live theater. I love, going and having social engagements of 50 plus more, like going to concerts. So I know that that's going to really look different in the upcoming months, and hopefully we'll get back to what, I don't know. And again, like you asked me earlier, like the uncertainty, right? I think this is like pointing out this uncertainty of, like, we're not really sure what that's going to look like in the long term.
So then, can you, like, having said all that, so that does a good job of setting up what we're really facing, right? You said the fears, the uncertainty, a lot of us trying to control things, or again, just the loss of identity of things that worked for me in the past are not applicable right now. So again, where I've seen businesses shift is they go, okay, what do people need right now? How do I align my message to that? And how do I help people in that way? But for you, what I'd love to do, if you're cool with this, like, can you walk me through how you would help someone who maybe is of the mindset of, like, oh shit, this is like, like the world is falling apart. Life is happening to me, not for me. Like, how would you help them from start to finish?
So first of all, we want to make sure that they're coming in with an open mind, right? If they're open to mind and now coming in and saying, okay, I know. And I think you point this out beautifully, because a lot of times people will not seek help or support outside themselves or their family systems, depending on, what that looks like, those dynamics, until they have hit rock bottom. I just was on a phone call literally like 2 weeks ago. A high school friend actually called me and said, I have this person, I see they're spiraling. What do I do? And this person is an adult. And I said, unfortunately, and I felt like I was the bearer of bad news, because I'm like, unless they're like, they really need hospitalization for some mental health condition that makes them gravely disabled, really, there's nothing. Sometimes we just have to hold the container and be a support to them until they get ready, right? And so a lot of times we have to see people hit rock bottom. Unfortunately, it is so painful for me to watch, because I want to be able to, like, reach out and say, like, hey, let's get you going in this direction, right? But sometimes we have to have that, because that's their life journey and that's their life path. And there's so much value in the fall, if you will. So let's say they're at that fall point and they say, okay, I'm starting to dig out and I need some support and help. That's when people are saying, okay, I know there's something isn't working. Otherwise, I'd have everything that I've ever dreamt of, right? A lot of times they are struggling with a limiting belief, self-sabotage, the imposter syndrome. They're just completely stuck in fear and doubt, worry, or in a sense of overwhelm. I can't even tell you how many people are coming to me with just like in this place of overwhelm. So they're at the place and say, okay, something has to shift. Something has to be different. I am not going to continue down this path like this anymore, okay? And that can be a really great motivator for people to seek change, right? So let's say they reach out to me and hop on a call. I don't work with everyone. I'm very transparent with everyone. I actually have a process energetically that I work with, because here's why. I want to make sure that I'm the right person for that person, because I'm all about results oriented, and I want them to see the results, right? And so I may not be the best teacher, right? And if not, I can refer them out, or sometimes it's just a timing thing. I had a person one time sought me out, and we didn't start working together until 14 months later. I said, there's something timing right, okay? But once they start to work with me, we start looking at what are all of those core beliefs that's not serving them. And usually there's more than one. Oftentimes it's almost like, and I'm looking for some paper here to kind of demonstrate this. I love drawing. I love drawing things out for clients, because a lot of times, let's say they're coming in and they're coming in for fear. And I'm going to quickly draw my little fun drawings here. Okay. And fear is a really generalized concept. And I don't know if you can see that. Can you see that? So I have fear, and hopefully it looks right. But I have all my little trees. Okay. It's like a giant forest. And so this is my fear forest, right? And so all of these trees represent something that's created fear for them, right? It could be, and this could be anxiety for us, this could be depression for us, this could be whatever for us, right? But so often is, a lot of things have created this fear. And let's say there's an experience when I was 4 years old and 12 and blah, 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 and whatever. And we can label all of these. And what happens is then we start living, and what I would say is that all these trees kind of make up our underlying belief system. And for me, belief systems can be boiled down to, if you will, I'm not blank enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not young enough. I'm not old enough. I'm not experienced enough. I'm not capable enough. I'm not something enough. And simply sometimes I'm just not enough, right? And so whatever those messages and scripts that we were given, the first 8 years of our lives, we are really in this like sponge state. We're soaking up so much information. We're really our brain is in a theta brainwave state, and so we're just soaking up, and we start to form unconsciously or subconsciously, actually, all of these patterns and beliefs in the first 8 years of our life, and then we go through our life with those belief systems set in place. And so then we start finding out evidence. So there's a part in our brain called the reticular activation system, and it's always scanning our environment. So whatever we have our lenses tuned to, if you will, we're going to keep creating those experiences. And that's why oftentimes people that are, let's say, addicted to struggle, because a lot of people that I work with are addicted to struggle, and it looks like this, okay? And then if they don't have struggle, they're like, what's this? I don't get this. Like, what is this? This doesn't feel real. Like, what is this? Right? And so then they like freak out, okay, because they don't know what this is. And they're like, this is uncomfortable. It's not what I like. I don't know what this is. I don't have the neural pathways to take this in. So what do? Is they self-sabotage, or they create more of this. Whew, this feels so much better. Like, I know what to expect on this, right? And so what happens is they create this again. And a lot of times people will go through those experiences of creating that, right? And what's happening is, what's ruling this is all of this other stuff that's underneath here. So we'll take a look at what's going on, and then we'll do a deep dive where I like to find the big ones. Okay, I like to find the big core ones, the big ones that are leading this belief. And what happens is, if we get the core ones and we can clear those out, what happens for the other ones that are connected to this, they kind of just fall down naturally. It's kind of like a generalization effect because it's all connected in the brain, right? And so I do that by a lot of outside the box tools. I just found over time that there was a faster, easier way. I don't want to hear the backstory. Okay. I don't want to know the ins and alls, the details. Okay. Do you want to have that or do you not? Like, yes, no, let's go. Like, right. And like, let's start, because I just love taking people to from that place of like, here's where it is uncertainty, and here's like that, oh, this is gonna make me grow. And I love pushing people to those that places like, let's go. Your life is waiting, and let's get there faster, right? And so I utilize some outside the box tools to help clear out those neural pathways that are no longer serving us. And then I give them physical tools that they can take every day and implement to their life so they can generate, more money, more clients, more freedom, but most of all, more impact and have a bigger impact. So I hope that answers your question.
That really does. And that brought up a lot of shit for me. In a good way. Cause so I have this thing right now. So my co-parent and I, we broke up last year. And I've been doing gluten-free, dairy-free, and I'm feeling like, I'm looking good. But so I'm like, okay, maybe I'll go back on the market. But not that anyone asked me to go back. No, there's no offers. No one's like, oh, I can't wait for this guy to go back on the. But it's been funny. I've been like examining. I've been not wanting to change. Like, so I did a lot of changing last year when I realized like this person, my wife at the time was like, yeah, no, you're not, it's not good. It's not working. So I had to look at it and make a lot of changes. And she was right about like 99.9% of stuff she was right about. And so I made a lot of changes. I feel good about that. But when I'm like, no, I'm like, okay, what kind of those pathways, what are those trees that I need to start looking at and examining to get back on the horse? That's a horrible fucking analogy, but to get back on the market. And I was like, I was surprised at how I was like, just very aware that I was like, yeah, I don't want to put myself out there again. I don't want to do all these things. And at the core, I started clearing and journaling, and I was like, oh, at the root of it is I don't feel attractive. I don't feel attractive. And there's, I won't tell you the whole history, but like my sister and I, like weekly we'll be like, do I look fat today? Because we grew up very heavy. So we're like, how do I look today? Is it okay? And so we have these go-to self-sabotages that are quite honestly more comfortable. And for me as a comedian too, it's like, I think about it, I'm like, well, do I want to, like, in my business life, I'm so happy and I'm soaring and it's heavenly. I'm like, but on the personal side, there's that tension, there's that drama that I'm comfortable with, I'm familiar with it. It is home to me. I was like, I don't want to work on that. So I could see what the point of all this is, that I could see where there's so much comfort in that, like you said, in that sabotage and in that discomfortable. That's not a word.
Well, I think as human beings, we're habitual creatures. Let's be honest, right? And so anytime, and the ego is right there with us. The ego wants to protect us and keep us safe and all snuggled up in our little comfort zone. And anytime we step out of that, we start confronting, and that's stepping out into the unknown. That's stepping out into the uncertainty. That's why a lot of people are in a sense of fear. I know that we're talking personally here, but in a global sense, right? Like even just going back into the dating scene, you're going, well, I'm holding back here, right? Because I'm not sure that I'm ready. I'm not sure that I'm, enough of me, right? To go, do I look good enough? Do I, and so I feel like, yeah, absolutely. Anytime we go outside that, we're going to get some pushback. We're going to see that resistance, right? And the journey is to go through that resistance, because I promise you there's some greater opportunity, greater growth on the outside of that. I always say, everything that we desire is on the outside of our comfort zone. And truth be told, like there are some people that says, you know what, that's too much. And they'll go back to living this mediocrity life. And that's okay for a lot of people, right? I just haven't found those people that in my circle, because I have all type A's and triple A's and, you know, all of that. They're like, let's go, let's go, let's go. Right. So, but
But
yeah.
then, but especially with those type A, the triple A's, I think it's so funny. The triple A's, you know, so you did a great job of explaining like your process of how you do it. What are like some major, like let's say 3 major tools, or even 1 major tool that like people that are that are all about control can control themselves. I always like to say like, I like to say like with the comfort zone thing, that like working within like expanding your comfort zone, right? Versus like I feel like going outside of it, people can shut down. You know, that's just my thing.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like I love the idea of expanding what you think is your comfort zone and going, oh, I can do this comfortably as I move into an uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, here's the thing, you know, I have in my family. So, and this has been kind of an unspoken process, but what I love is like, so when my family came to, when we moved to Colorado, oh goodness, like almost 20 years ago. And I just had this like unspoken rule that I said, you know, if you guys can stay with us, but you just have to do one thing outside your comfort zone, right? And I kind of like stated that years and years ago, and I've kind of forgotten about it because it's like this really unspoken rule now. And so here is our comfort zone. Okay, can you see that? Here's our little comfort zone. This is what we're comfortable with. This is our ins and outs. Like we know this, we know it well at the back of our hand. And you know, skydiving might be out here for a lot of people. Let's be real, okay? I don't suggest going from here to here because that's too big of a leap. But what we can do is go from here to here, let's say, right? And so, so I'm going to use my mom as an example because when she first coming out here, I grew up in the Midwest. I mean, very like meat and potato family. Okay, so coming out here, I love I'm a foodie. I love food. And so we just started, you know, every time she'd come out here, we would, you know, have different types of food, Vietnamese, you know, Thai, like it doesn't matter. And we would keep expanding that experience. Every time she'd come out, we'd have new experiences. Well, then that led to one thing led to another. Then we started doing adventures, and then we started doing like, you know, whitewater rafting, and then that led to other adventures and like zip lining and other adventures, and then eventually what happened is she started growing her comfort zone out and out and out. And what happened just a couple years ago, her and I went skydiving together. We would not have done that in the first place, right? Like she was like, you know, drinking a glass of wine was outside of her comfort zone, like, you know. So, but when we start to work that muscle, and what happens is we start giving permission for our brain to say, I'm okay. I'm okay with this new experience. And so it can be literally something different every day, right? Eleanor Roosevelt always has that great saying, says, try one thing that scares you every day, right? And it could literally be years and years ago, I had this, I gave this example. I didn't do anything outside my comfort zone. Usually I drive a different way home, or I'll write with my left hand instead of my right hand. I mean, it could be anything. And my husband and I were finished dinner, and we were sitting, and I was like, I'm gonna get some ice cream. And I literally put ice cream in a wine glass and ate it with a fork. And he goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, we had like a Jerry Seinfeld sitcom about, he was so wrapped up with why I was eating ice cream out of a wine glass with a fork, right? But it's something different and novel to the brain. So what we're doing is activating the frontal cortex of our brain, which has all sorts of benefits to it as well. But when we start to expand our comfort zone, we start giving our permission into our brain that we're okay, that we can be okay in these experiences, even though they seem so benign. It's subconsciously giving us permission to do things in our business. My business, I do things now in my business that I have risked a lot more, but now it's like, oh yeah, we're doing this, and it doesn't really impact me anymore. It's not like I go to that fear state, because oftentimes fear states shut off and shut down, our creativity, our our ability to expand, our ability to be open to possibilities and suggestions and innovation. And so we want to be open as much as possible. And this is one of those little tools that we can be doing on a regular basis to start expanding ourselves out more.
That's huge. That is huge. And like, you know, yeah, you are, I mean, you are a great example of someone who pushes herself past boundaries and comfort zone, because you hired like you work with a comedy and speech coach. I mean, come on, this wasn't, you said like so many times, you're like this, like it blows my mind because I see you as such a star, but like when you said it on stage that time, you were like 2-3 years ago or 5 years ago, 6, the speaking was not a thing, you know?
Yeah.
So,
well, and honestly,
yeah.
I'll share you the backstory because you didn't get the. So years and years ago, we had I did some videos so I was doing 1-minute videos for my business. So there was 10 1-minute videos of like nuggets, wisdom tips, whatever. And I show up, and I've 2 of them. I'm supposed to do 2 trailers for LinkedIn and maybe YouTube, and they're teleprompted. Okay, they're teleprompted. I'm just reading a script. And it took me 3 hours to do 2-minute trailers because my dyslexia like hopped in and it was ruling the world, right? And so I was like, I just completely shut down. I'm like, I can't do this. And so I totally ghosted this professional videographer, and I was like, I'm not doing this, right? And then we did some more videos eventually. And he was at the event, the first event that I had, and he says, you know what? He's like, Teri, and I kept telling him, I was like, I'm terrible at this, I'm terrible at this. And he's like, no, you're doing good, you're doing good. Well, at the event, he said, you know what, Teri, totally transparent. He's like, you're probably the worst I've ever worked with. And I was like, I knew it, right? And we laughed because he's become a good friend and everything. He's like, you are my greatest success story. Because he's like, you then went on saying this is an issue for you, and you went on to fight it, and you did Facebook Lives and did interviews and like continued to work that muscle. And now speaking on major stages, things like that, because I've worked that muscle. I didn't start, in my comfort zone. I had to grow into this, I don't know even what to call it, right? And so the fact that I, hired you as a comedian to do stand-up comedy, people think I have lost my mind, by the way. Like people have, like, they're like, good for you. I don't know how you could do that. They think I have lost my mind at this point. So
well, even that is like, I just love, like you and I were texting a few weeks ago, and I was dying laughing. Like I was like, because we were planning on doing a show May 9th. And so
no, I'm holding out though. I feel optimistic.
Yeah. Well, because I remember because you better not cancel. And I was like, Terry is my thought process was, Terry's such a master manifester. I'm like, we're gonna be there May 9th. And then I was like, Terry, I'm like, we might not, right? and we got in this really cool discussion about manifesting, positive thinking.
Yeah.
But it was like proof, you walk the walk, because I was like, because now I'm like really, I still haven't emailed them to be like, we're probably going to pull out, we're probably not going to do it. Like, because I'm like, fucking Terry's in my head going, we got to do this show. So
I know, part of me, I've not been practicing. So I'm like, maybe we need to like postpone this. But I think I can be ready if I needed to, right? Like, that's how resourceful I am. I'm like, let's do it if we're doing it. So
hell yeah, and that's huge kudos to you. And I do have to say, like, for people watching this, like, your set is. I mean, I feel bad for all my other clients, but like, I don't crack up as much. Like, but when you're doing your set, I'm just dying, and I have to turn off the camera because you don't like to look at me. But like, I'm dying.
I know, because I'm like, I don't want to. Yeah. Anyways.
But so, like. We'll close it out here, but like what I'm really happy with the way you're saying is even just the notion of like incrementally growing into a comfort zone and expanding it and making it big. Like I always say, like I always joke, like with Anthony Robbins, like I know he's helped so many people, like thousands, right? Millions of people. But I would say like his notion of get out of your comfort zone, to me, that's very mannish, like bullyish, like I'm like, for him, it's more comfortable to jump out of an airplane. I was just an example. Like it's more comfortable for him to skydive than it is for him to sit for 3 weeks and not work and eat like potato chips on his couch. Like that would
Right.
probably freak him out, you know?
Right.
So I was like,
Yeah.
to be fair, and I've seen this work with so many clients, and myself even the past few weeks, honestly, where, and I've been telling people this and they love these stories, is that like I got, this was 2 weeks ago, so it'd be 3 weeks ago. I got into that mindset of, I feel bad right now. I feel bad pushing my services or, you know, and I shouldn't be pushing service anyway, but I feel bad selling, bottom line, right? I feel bad selling. And my coach was like, yeah, but no, like, don't, like, you're helping people right now. You're helping them do this thing. And it took one person, and this happened to me twice, like separate times over the past 5 weeks, where I was like, I don't feel comfortable. And I was like, but I am offering this thing if you want it, if it helps you. And then it took one person to say, yeah, I'll send me an invoice right now. And then I was able to sell more in a week than in past months. You know what I mean? Like things like that have been happening, where it's because it's just, you got to just start with that first step. You know what I mean? And that first step is huge.
Yeah. Well, and I think also like we can be our own worst critic, right? We can make up a fabulous story in our head and we can find all the evidence, right? So that reticulating activation system, when it scans the environment, it's finding evidence. At that moment, you're saying, you know what, you're right, I shouldn't be charging for my services. I shouldn't be pushing this because da. And, oh, look at so-and-so. So-and-so's not doing it. They're offering it for free. Or, you know, and your brain will find and seek out the information and validate whatever the story we're creating, right? And so it can be very powerful. And I'm so grateful that you ran into someone that says no, because I see it as a way to serve, right? There are more people in need right now of comedy, of transformation, of shifting, you know, mental blocks and challenges in their business than any time before. And if we show up with a place of space of like, here I am to serve, we give people the permission to say yes or no. But what we're noticing too at this time, everyone's slowing down, which is a gift. And we're starting to notice what's in priority, what's on a bucket list, what's that we haven't tapped into. So I'm an idea generator, and I have had probably 80 different product ideas that I keep thinking, oh, I'm going to get this done. And I haven't, right? I have launched 3 new products. I will be launching 3 new products by the end of all of this is said and done. One's almost done. And the other 2 are in the working, so they'll probably be done by the second week of May, right? So it's giving people the opportunity to say, okay, where's my priorities and what else can I do right now, right? And so it's filling people with this place and space of possibilities. And so you're here to serve, and what you have to offer is of value to people. And so I'm a big believer in saying the world will continue. It just is going to continue a little differently than what we've been doing, right? So.
This is so like, oh my God, I can't, amidst all the news and all the like the shitty things you're reading. Like, so I want to ask you with this last question, okay? This is the most selfish question I have. Okay, so that really helped me realize, okay, on the dating front, that I'm like, okay, like everything's shut down right now. No one's interacting. And for an introvert, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I'm happy, you know, but with the dating side, I'm like, this is an amazing, I didn't realize until right now, truthfully, that what's really happening is that I'm being forced, like I can't just hide behind excuses of why I'm not dating or whatever, because like there's no excuse, there's no interaction right now, right?
Yeah.
So what is the way that I can, like, help me out? What is the way that I can work through this agreement that I'm not attractive enough?
Okay, so your belief system is I'm not attractive. Okay, where's your evidence? What's your evidence that you have of that? Because I'm guessing that's probably based on some faulty evidence, maybe.
Well, so I've worked in the past. I've worked with models. Like I used to teach acting to models back in the day, like 10. And so, but they didn't know either. They didn't know if they were attractive. Like, so how do you gauge attractiveness?
So now you're comparing yourself to them, right? Yeah. Okay, so stop it. No, stop it.
Not helpful.
Okay. So, okay, so you're not working with models anymore, right? Are you
I
do you
mean, I
find
mean,
yourself comparing yourself to other people
I mean,
still?
look who I'm working with right now. You know what I mean? Like, come on now. No, but what I mean is that they didn't know either. So, like, meaning they didn't know how to gauge their own attraction. They just worked out or whatever it is, but they weren't like the good ones. The nice ones weren't like,
Yeah.
damn, I look good. They were like, oh no, do you see this? That doesn't look right, and this doesn't look right. And that. So I'm saying, like, how do we even know? Like, I love, again, with the idea that you're talking about, like, you can fact check anything and create your own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's not get political, but
Yeah.
for both sides. But how do you find something like that? How do you prove one way or the other that thing in and of itself?
Okay, so let's do something real quick. Okay, if you're willing to play,
Yeah, totally.
I just want to see if we have an awareness of where this comes from for you. Okay, so this awareness can come immediately right there. It's going to percolate up to your brain, and I just want you to, if you feel comfortable sharing, you can. If you don't have to. But we're just going to get some awareness on, where does this come from? What is this serving for you? What is the information that's coming up? And again, if you don't get an awareness right away, there's no rightness or wrongness. It may come tonight after you dream and you wake up next morning. It may come next week. Okay, and we'll just stay in check if it doesn't come up immediately. Okay, so what I want you to do is close your eyes for just a second, and I want you to think about this not being attractive enough, or concept that you're playing with and have been struggling with for some time now. So I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to ask this question. Okay, and you're going to say it out loud and just repeat after me. So my body, what is it that I'm trying to tell, or what is it that you're trying to tell me
What is it that you're trying to tell me
that I'm refusing to hear?
that I'm refusing to hear? Oh shit.
What's coming up for you?
Well, it's just like, so it's coming from like my gut, which has always been, okay, I'm gonna open my eyes now. It's coming from my gut, and this is like some childhood stuff and a half. Like, I'm not making this up, but so I've always been really sensitive about my gut. I don't do Pilates, I don't do sit-ups, I don't do anything like that because it causes anxiety. But it basically just this feeling of like loneliness from like childhood. You know what I mean? This like, because we traveled around the world a lot, and I'm super close to my sister, but like we growing up as a kid, like, you don't want to hear the backstory, but but like you said it, you're like, I don't need to hear the back. But yeah, I feel
But
lonely.
maybe your audience does. No,
Yeah.
no. Of course, I'm compassionate. Of course, I'm compassionate. Of course, I would love to hear the backstory in this regards on this interview. But you're right. So immediately you were able to tap into something deeper. So I would say with that piece of like that, I would do some, if we were working together, what I do is like we would take you and look at what's the deeper belief system under even that, and take it all the way down and say, okay, where did this come from? How long have you had it? Like, what were the stories that were below it? So if we looked at that loneliness, like in that kind of context, like where did that message come from? And what was the messaging that you got from that, right? And there was probably layers and layers of messaging that came to that. And that's one of many, we're so complex human beings, right? Sometimes, we can take a look at, and anytime let's say we look at a loneliness, well, loneliness is impacting all these other areas of our lives as well. And so the cool thing about the work that I do is like when we clear out this piece, it also impacts and connects to other elements, right? Of, what can be, holding you back. So your homework would be to start exploring what that loneliness looks like for you. And then let me think of some homework, like some additional homework that you can be playing with, is just really getting clear of where those messages came from you, or how you took those on, and how have you been living those stories in your life. Because I promise you, most of the stuff that we are given is either we are doing it to protect ourselves, or we have been given it, right? And sometimes it's all of the stuff that we carried that stops us from shining in the world. I carried on so much from my childhood that didn't serve me, but I was gifted it and I didn't know what to do with it. And so I was like, I guess I'll just take it. I guess that's true. And then my brain started finding all the evidence to support that being. And oftentimes it's not even ours. Is as random as that might say, is sometimes we've taken on these belief systems that it's not even ours to take on. It's someone else's. It's someone else's insecurities about who they are in a parental figure, or in a person that, you know, had authority over us. And sometimes it was their stuff that we took on. We just didn't know. And then we took it on as our reality. And it's like, okay, well, now we're creating this belief system as a result. So I would take a little deeper look at that, and how that's showing up for you. And then you and I can follow up with another conversation too around
that. Well, this is huge. But so bottom line though, it sounds like what you're saying is that like like as you're saying, I'm already associating it with my grandmother, parents, like all these things that, you know, like that were said that made me feel distanced. And then you add to it, the first episode we did for the show was Lisa Foster. We did Enneagram stuff, and I'm an Enneagram 4, which is like I have to be unique and special. So there were all these things that were told me about. I grew up very fat, so it was very much like, when you lose weight, the girls are going to chase you. When you lose weight, when you. So there's something freakish about me. There's something wrong about me.
And then there's and then there's like almost like like a conditional love, right? Like, when you lose weight, then we'll love you, right? Then we'll spend time with you. Then we'll whatever the message is that you interpret it as. And now you're like, okay, well, that's not me. That means I'm not lovable because I am fat, or I am not lovable because blah, blah, blah.
That happens so many times. I gotta say, like in high school, I wanted to be part of the theater department so bad, and I failed like just miserably for 3 years. And then I was like, I quit smoking and drinking and got my grades up and lost weight, and then I started getting in, and I was involved my senior year and everything. And it taught me that there's something innately I gravitate towards lazy, wrong, unhealthy. Don't have discipline, all these things. And when I change it, only then will the things that became the programming. And just like you're saying, that became the learning that I'll only be successful when I change who I am in this moment.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Instead of being whole and complete with who you are at this moment. Got it.
Oh, okay. Whole and complete with who you are. This is not a Jewish thing. We don't do this. This is not an Israeli mindset, you know? It was always see what the other kids are doing? Oh. You have things that you do. It's not good. Them better, you know, like that was very much a thing. And so,
and that's being imprinted into your brain on a cellular memory daily. And we know that's how the brain, learns, is through pattern behavior, right? And so you have this pattern behavior, messaging. So of course it must be true, right? And you saw the evidence throughout your childhood. You could list all the experiences that you had that would say, yes, this is true.
And it's funny that like 100% Teri. And it sounds like too, it sounds like I know in those times where the worst times for me in life was times where things slowed down. Like when I was unemployed, I was an adjunct instructor for many years. And it was like, they just wouldn't give me a semester of classes. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. And that's when all this stuff, at that time, I had no resources, I had no tools. It would boil to the surface, and I wanted to avoid it like the plague. And so I can imagine that with the slowdown that's happening, this is all this, again, the world didn't die in a month.
Everything is bubbling up. So anything that we were pushing down is forcing us on a global experience to take a look at. And I've been shown things like, in the last 4 or 5 weeks, like I'm like, oh, okay, well, hello, and I'm expecting it, right? Because I'm like, okay, we're going into slowdown. Like I'm being shown some stuff here, and it's exciting and fun because I'm like, oh, that's some stuff I haven't dealt with yet. We guess we're dealing with it now, right? And so we're getting this opportunity in a very profound way to look at the stuff that is no longer serving us, because as we go into this new chapter, right? Or maybe actually it's a new book, right? Like we're going to leave this behind us, and we're going to go into a new book. And what are we going to take with us? What are we not? And so it's an incredible time for evaluation, to identify what has served us, what's not serving us. And for a lot of us are pivoting, right? And we're pivoting, and we're going into this place that we've never been before, physically, emotionally, spiritually, it's an amazing time of opportunity But there's a grief and loss process, and I want to be really transparent and saying there's a grief and loss process that's happening with all of this. And if we weren't saying that, we would be joking ourselves, right? Because there's this process of we're sloughing off some stuff that's no longer serving us, and really taking a look at what's been working, what's not working, and how are we heading forward in our, with the new resources and tools and knowledge that we have at this moment.
That's beautiful. That, like, honestly, as I'm listening to them, it's like, that's such a good way. There's so many people on that are out there talking about positive mindset and all that. And when we began the descent of struggle 5 years ago, or I'm sorry, 4 years. Well, I mean, it was definitely 5 years ago, but it started boiling to the surface 3-4 years ago. I remember people saying to me in Colorado, I talk about this all the time in my comedy show, especially, they're like, "What are you manifesting?" And I was like, "How could you fucking don't apply? It's my fault." I was like, life doesn't want me to succeed. And it's funny now, but that's how it felt, right? Like, without having that shift, that I just didn't want to look at all the opportunities life was giving me. I didn't want to accept what it was showing me that I had to work through. But you've done a brilliant job, I think, of kind of, showing the different pockets or different, like, ingredients of what's all included in how to shift this mindset in this difficult time. So again, it's like all these things, slowing down means that you are forced to look at things that you didn't want to examine before. And then just how to shift from, again, it's happening for me, not to me. What is the lesson? What am I supposed to learn? And then doing incremental, like, step by step, one thing at a time. What is one thing you can do right now to get to that place? And then ultimately create a new foundation for what happiness is, and a new foundation of what, like, home feels like, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's a lot of shifts and a lot of, transformation that's taking on a global level, so we really get this opportunity to do this globally, transitioning and, transforming, if you will, fear into faith, or fear into, the next possibility, right? And so I think that's the work that we're really doing. I don't think it's COVID-19. I think the fear the virus that we're working with is fear. I think that's the virus that we're dealing with. And we have some work to do. We have to buff up our muscles and get outside of our comfort zone, and really get to that place of getting certain in the uncertainty and getting comfortable in the uncomfortable. And that's the work that we get to do now.
So
Yay!
You made it sound like such a fun adventure, but that's what it should be. Like you said, like, no more doom and gloom. Like, again, we acknowledge the grief, but we don't sit in it. We acknowledge it and we move forward into. That's what's so fun.
And that's taken me decades to come to. I was completely addicted to struggle. I was completely addicted to victimhood. Everything's happening, to me. Everything's why did they get to do this? And I mean, it has taken my own personal journey through this. And I think that I can relate to everyone, because I was there. I was there for a really long time. And
how'd you get out?
It was my own personal journey. And it was one thing after another, that it was like these small COVID viruses, if you will. It was like these little viruses that I had throughout my upbringing. And every time it made me pivot, right? And every time I pivoted, right, I was like, that's interesting. And I would get curious, and then I would get curious. And then what started happening that I don't even know until years and years ago is I started creating subconsciously mentors along my path that started helping me make the pivots. And when I look back, I go, I can name like almost every little mentor that I didn't even know what they were there to serve. And they were just gently pivoting me, right? Gently pivoting me. And then it was all my curiosity. Like, I'm a big fan of curiosity. I don't know that I can ever know everything, but I love learning. I love experiencing everything. So when I say, when I die, I'm going to have experienced everything. I'm going to have tasted everything. I'm going to tried everything as much as I possibly can, right? Because because there's so much, right, to take in. And it was through my own like curiosity of like, oh, I got exposed to this. And then I got introduced to Jack Canfield years and years ago, and I started doing his work. And then I just started, getting, and then that led to, all these other amazing authors, and I just started soaking up and implementing. So I love learning, but I'm a bigger believer in implementing. So take the time to learn something and then take 1 or 2 or 3 nuggets and then implement. And I just got to be a master implementer. And then as I started making changes, I started feeling in a better feeling space. And then it's like, oh, I like this, like, right? And it just kept getting reinforced and reinforced in my journey. And now I love taking people through that experience of that personal transformation, because there is light at the end of the tunnel. And so in my experience with this, COVID-19 that's been happening, it really was, within 72 hours, we made the shifts that we needed to shift and made that pivot. And it literally felt like a bump in the road. But had you asked me 20 years ago, it would have been pure devastation. It would have literally been devastation. And I would be probably eating ice cream somewhere, passed out, like indulging in things that I shouldn't be indulging in, because I wouldn't have known what I know now to shift it and, be able to cope with it, to where I was like, okay, all right, this might hurt a little bit, but we're going to go through it, right? And I've surrounded myself with an amazing team that, help make it easier to go through this transition, right? And so I'm like, okay, on the phone with my team, outsourcing, like, okay, what we're doing, let's do it, okay, and let's go, right? So it did feel differently. And I think that has to contribute to where I'm at, my mindset, and saying, okay, I have conditioned myself to look for the gifts in everything now. And as painful as some of the experiences we've gone through, and I've gone through a lot of my own painful experiences, I can now see that, again, going with what you said, that this is happening for me, not to me. And if I can stand in that place and space, I can make the shift, and it doesn't have to be all terrible, right? No, don't get me wrong, there's things that are not so great about it, but
Right.
But I can also see, and it's more prevalent. And for me, if we get to choose, right, we make 35,000 choices a day. If we get to make a choice in how we show up and how we experience things, I am always going to choose to show up in this space of possibility, in this space of what else is possible, what can we create? Because I lived this struggle so long, and it's a heaviness that I don't want to go back to, right? And so if I'm going to make the choice, I'm always going to choose to live in this space and place, because it fills me, it makes me happy, it makes me joyful, it makes me in a better mood, and I can be in a place of gratitude.
Well, and it's hard not to share that, right? Once you've crossed that, and that's what I think makes you more credible than anything, is that, like, I remember you talking at the presentation about, like, all that you went through in life and how you overcame it. That to me is, I relate, or I find that more credible than just someone who's like, I was really successful in corporate as a salesperson. I became a counselor and a coach, and now I make millions, and I charge you $20,000 a month for nothing. Like you're so much more credible than that. So, like, that being said, like, how do people connect with you? How if people, like, if this resonates, like, how do they go to you and connect with you and, use you as a resource?
Yes, well, 2 best ways. The first one is through my website, talkingwithteri, TERI.com. And then another thing, that if you want to come and just be filled up, whether you have a business or not have a business, this is for life and business, I have a free resource that I am doing. I've created a fabulous community of like-minded individuals that are coming together, and you can find that organization. It's every Tuesday morning from 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. And so you can just go to talkingwithteri, TERI.com/Tuesdays. And every Tuesday, we're hopping on a call for an hour, just to be our support and a resource for folks. And so I would invite them to come and play during that time. It's just a great time. It's really like the content gets created in the moment. And so it's so powerful and juicy. And it's just a way to get filled up. If you're struggling or know someone that is struggling, come and join us.
That's awesome. And I'll put a link, I'll put all those links up and stuff. Teri, thank you so much for your time. You just made me feel so much better about life.
Yay!
You're just so positive. So thank you so much. I adore you. Virtual hug.
Yeah, virtual hugs.
Cool. All right.
Massive love to you. All right. We'll be in touch.